Thanks for joining us today on Polk Salad.
We've started the season and had 2 great shows.
Great idea. That's smart.
And we've just settled in quite nicely.
We have a great show for you today. It's the month of May, and it's a great time to be outdoors. You're going to enjoy meeting these 3 folks we have today. We'll be right back. We're here with Kristen Larson. Kristen is the Executive Director of the Luckiamute Watershed Council, and I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I got to meet you last month in April. You had organized an open house fair in Independence, and that was a terrific idea. And I got to know a little bit more about the Watershed project, but please tell us more.
Sure. So we did the recreation fair as part of our Love Your Watershed series, where we want to provide opportunities for people in the community to learn more about their local watershed, which is really just all the land in our area, the land that drains to our local rivers. So learn ways they can recreate, learn about the wildlife that exists here. We've had science pubs at Brew in downtown Independence where people could learn some research and science going on about the watershed. So the recreation fair, we invited lots of different people, representatives from organizations to provide information about their different property or activities they could do. So birding, biking, boating, photography, hiking, all sorts of things that you can do within a 10 to 30 minute radius from our local area.
Good. And one of the things on your table were opportunities, little pieces of paper of how people could volunteer. So is that still an opportunity that's open?
We always welcome volunteers. So the Watershed Council does a lot of different projects, both this type of outreach and engagement and education for the community, and also restoration, so improving water quality and habitat in our watershed. So we're always looking for helpers, either in our stewarding some of our restoration sites, pulling weeds, getting your hands dirty. We also do temperature monitoring of some streams, so we need help to go out in the field for that. We also need some indoor help. We're always looking for folks that are interested in social media to help some of us
yes, that's true.
older folks navigate that world and help in the office. We're also run by a volunteer board, and we have committees that help our organization function and do its work. So we're also looking for people to participate in those ways. So there's a lot of different ways people can get involved.
So it's a non-government, an NGO organization, voluntary advisory. You advise. Where do you get your funding? Just curious.
So our funding comes from a lot of different sources. We are, as you said, we're also a nonprofit. So we're a 501c3, tax-exempt nonprofit, non-governmental, no regulatory role. And we get our funding from a variety of grant sources, so state, federal funds, private foundation funds like Meyer Memorial Trust or Oregon Community Foundation, and then also donations. So individual donors, business donors, things like that. And we happily accept small and large amounts of donations. So,
I've seen in the Itemizer Observer, I'm also one of those that's not savvy with social media, but the IO has promoted a couple of events, and I like the idea that you're getting out there in front of the folks. And you have some partners. You have, I know that Central School District is a partner.
Yep.
And also the City of Monmouth, the City of Independence.
Yes, to do our work, partnership is very, very important. We don't want to try to do everything, and we certainly couldn't. So we have a restoration project along Ash Creek through parts of Monmouth and Independence, and both cities in the school district were doing work on their properties, and they have also contributed resources to help that project. And I should mention also the Ash Creek Water Control District is also a partner on that project. And so, the school district for those, and then lots of the Polk Soil and Water Conservation District. So every time we have something that's important for us to move forward, we think about who are the other people that might have a
Right.
common interest.
Tie in with
Yeah.
them. Cool. Well, what brought you here to our area?
So after I graduated from undergrad, I was in Virginia. My family was in
Oh.
Virginia. I went to William and Mary in
Oh, really?
Williamsburg, Virginia. And then after that, I went into the Peace Corps in Ecuador. And so I met an Oregonian. Well, he says he's not an Oregonian because he was 2 when they moved here. But so I
enough.
met my current husband. He was another Peace Corps volunteer in Ecuador. And so when we got back to the U.S., I was in Virginia and he was in Oregon. And then I moved out here in it was 2003. So 15 years ago, just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So, yep.
So and do you enjoy the area?
I love it. And fortunately, my sister met a man from the West Coast when she was in New York, and so they're in Portland now. So at least
good. You have family close by.
So I have family, and then when my parents come visit, they get to see us all at once.
That's
so.
a good idea.
Yep.
So what do you do when they come? What are some of the things you show them?
Well, I love to take them out. So we go visit the wineries in the area, Redgate and Airlie and a lot of different ones. And then I've taken them up to Falls City, to the falls,
that's
and the
fun.
breadboard pizza. And we've done the ferry. And so they like to, I mean, this area is so beautiful.
It
I feel
is.
so fortunate to
Yeah.
work in this watershed and in this area. So it's fun to take them sightseeing.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Well, I know I enjoy it too. We haven't been here as long as you, but we've tried to get out to some of those places, so that's great. I have in my materials a map that we can also show that shows where the area is that the Luckiamute watershed runs. And we're in a bit of the corner for the Ash Creek, but you also brought up another area you thought we would enjoy.
Yeah, so we also do a lot of restoration work down on state parks land at Luckiamute State Natural Area, or LSNA. That's a parks property that's where the Luckiamute River meets the Willamette River. And it's almost 1,000 acres. There's a huge old forest there, floodplain forest, that's just really beautiful to hike through. Giant cottonwood trees. It's a beautiful place for birders. It's a nice, easy, flat hike. It's often muddy because it does. The rivers do flood it
And
periodically.
then buggy. That means buggy
Not
too?
so
No?
bad. If you
Good.
stand still in the forest in the summer, the mosquitoes might come in. But if you keep
Keep
moving,
moving.
you're okay.
Yeah.
So
Good.
we've been working there for 7 or 8 years now, and just trying to control some invasive weeds and establish native trees and shrubs that provide just a lot of benefit to the area.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you have a couple of, or well, at least one upcoming event. Tell us what's that.
So the next thing on our docket in our Love Your Watershed series is June 5th, and it's a focus on Native Americans and plants, an ethnobotany fair. It'll be located at Beazell Memorial Forest, which is in Benton County on Kings Valley Highway. And it's going to be hosted by 3 members of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. And it'll be open house style from 2 to 7 p.m., so it's a Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
And they'll have scheduled guided hikes where he'll take you through the forest and show you the different plants and talk about the ways in their culture that they use them for different purposes.
That's interesting. That
Yeah,
sounds good.
It should be really great.
Yeah, it is a terrific way to work with other cultures as well. Good idea. Well, I look forward to that one. There was a report that came out, it's been a few years now, on the water quality of the rivers, and it was primarily the Willamette, but the Luckiamute feeds into the Willamette. It wasn't a terribly high score. It wasn't really low. It was like a B minus. What do you think it is now?
Oh, well, I don't know that it would have changed too much. You don't often think of temperature as a pollutant, but warm water in terms of aquatic life is not good, especially the salmon and trout that we are so valuable in Oregon. So I don't know that that's changed very much since then. But, B minus, the sort of take-home message that came out of that was good, but we can certainly do better.
Do better.
And so I think one of the things the Watershed Council likes to remind people is we all have a role to play in this.
Yeah.
Some people think, just the people that live next to the river. But, again, wherever you are, you're in a watershed. So everywhere you are, eventually all that rain ends up in the river. So we can all play a
Well,
part.
I think it's happening nationally, probably globally, the change in temperature of the water, but there was an article today in the paper about the Colorado. There's not enough snow runoff, and so Havasu and Powell are going to be low again. It's like the 16th year in a row.
Wow. And that's happening here too. The Cascades are at, I think, about 60% of what's considered
that
normal
so?
for snowpack. And in eastern Oregon, there's some areas that are much worse. So
More damage.
the water levels, when you look in the rivers right now, look
Mm-hmm.
kind of fine. But we do rely a lot on that melting snow for spring and
Yeah.
summer water, and areas are going to struggle this year.
Sure.
Yeah.
We lived in Spokane for a few years, and the river there, in the spring, it would just come flooding through, and then they'd have to cut it off, or slow it way down.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are controls in place, dams and
Yeah.
so forth.
Yeah.
So
It's always a balance.
tell me what riparian means, or
Sure. Riparian is a term referring to the transition from aquatic, so the wet part inside the channel, to terrestrial.
Oh.
So when you look,
Oh,
it's stream
okay.
side is the common word, but we don't think of it, it's an area that often when the streams get up, it's underwater and then
Right.
go down. And so the things that exist there are, have evolved to exist where streams will flood it and have rushing flows come through.
Okay.
And they're very important in terms
Sure.
of creating that transition zone.
and so that's going to be where you need volunteers to
Yep. So we
pull and
Yeah.
plant, or do you?
Yep, because things grow really well there.
Yeah.
And the invasive weeds as well as the native
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah.
I know recently at Gentle House or Gentle Woods, they were having an ivy pull because it's one of those invasive things that you wanted down.
Yeah.
Now, would the savanna, the oaks, be an issue for you too? Or
There are oak habitat areas in our
Okay.
watershed. We actually don't do a lot of focused work there. The Polk Soil and Water Conservation
Okay.
District does a lot of work
Okay.
on oak habitat, but they are rare habitats. I think it's something 2 or 3% of what used to exist of that habitat type is present today. And there's a lot of rare species that depend on that habitat. So it's
Okay.
important to keep what we have and
Yeah.
see if we can improve it.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've so enjoyed our time together.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned quite a bit.
Well, great.
And I'll look forward to the June event. That sounds
Absolutely.
like
Well,
fun.
thank you for having me.
Thanks
Yep.
for coming on.
Thanks.
And we'll be right back. I got carried away. I jumped all over the place and you followed. We're here with Joel Geier. I'm just going to refer to him as the Birdman and let him explain to you what his many hats are made of. Welcome, Joel.
Well, thanks, Susan.
Thanks for coming on. So I know I met you at the same fair that I met Kristen at, and you had a nice table and super maps and fun things we can do to find birds. And tell me, what are some of the things you do that relate to birds?
Okay, yeah. The main thing I was involved in for that recreation fair was, we call it the Willamette Valley Birding Trail, and it's a series of routes that people can follow to go look for birds. And part of the idea was to bring tourists to the area, and part of it is to make birds more accessible to local people who just want to get out and see what nature has to offer here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know you have been involved with an Audubon Society in Corvallis. Is that so? Or
that's right.
is okay?
Yeah.
And then you've won awards. You write bird notes. You do the bird count at Christmas time. So you're getting to do what you love. It sounds like. How long have you been interested in birding?
I started off probably when I was about 9 years old or something, and I think my cousins figured it out because they could get a free dessert just by telling me there was a bird out the window, and then they would steal what
They
I had.
take yours.
So I was pretty distractible, yeah.
So you grew up in northern Minnesota, is that it?
I was born in northern Minnesota
Okay.
and then moved to southern Minnesota later on. So.
Okay, so the birds you saw there, because I lived in Wisconsin, lots of cardinals, if I remember. I know there were in Wisconsin. Did you have cardinals?
Yeah, we didn't, cardinals, at that time, they
No?
didn't get that far north. Now
Okay.
they're getting more common up there with
Oh, okay.
climate change and all that, but I saw them in St. Louis for the first time, which is kind of fitting.
Oh, okay. What kind of birds did you have there that fascinated you? What made you get into this?
Yeah, I think some of the coolest ones, well, killdeer are a
yeah.
bird, we have them out here too, and they're out in
Yeah.
all the fields, and on the farm we had to go out and weed soybeans. That was kind of a big job when you're about 9 years old or whatever there. And there were always killdeer out in the fields, and they nested right between the rows. And mourning doves too would nest right,
Oh.
you'd be walking along and they'd scare you to death because they'd just come flying
Jump
up.
right up out.
Yeah.
And they make it, I don't like their sound, their noise. Killdeers are that quack
Yeah,
kind of thing.
their Latin name is something
Noisy.
vociferous.
Oh, okay. So it's fitting.
Yeah.
Good. So killdeer have been that noisy forever.
Yeah.
So what is the bird that you like to see here? What's the elusive bird here?
Well, the ones I've really gotten into grassland birds, coming from
Okay.
northwestern Minnesota, and I kind of have the prairies cooked into me. So when I got out here and I found out there were grasslands in the Willamette Valley historically, I really got interested in those. So there's a few of them that are actually in pretty big trouble out here. One is the streaked horned lark, which has made the news recently. It was listed as threatened about 2 years ago. And there's another one, it's a little tiny sparrow that just has a white ring around its eye that's called the Oregon Vesper sparrow. And both of them only nest in the Willamette Valley and down to the Umpqua region and up to Puget Sound. So they're all on the west side of the Cascades. And they were in trouble because, there's a lot of other uses for the land out here. And so I've really gotten enthused about those now.
Well, they're adaptive, though, hopefully, because I know how, people move into areas that were primarily farmland and reduce the area that their habitat. So do they adapt? Do they learn to live close to people?
They do their best. They have they don't what they like. Most of them like wide open spaces. Oh, the other one I should mention is the western meadowlark, which was our state bird.
Yes,
and
of course.
of
Yeah,
course they're
yeah.
up on Basket Slough, and that's one of the best places to see them.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, but the other ones, they do make use of other kinds of crops, like the streaked hornlarks. I was out in the Christmas tree farm this morning, and they'll use those because they have this open structure, and
Good.
and they're not bothered too much during nesting
Good.
season.
Good.
And sometimes also grass seed fields too.
Oh, grass seed fields. Well, they should be in heaven here. This is like the capital of the world, isn't it, for grass seed, or pretty close?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's changing fast. That's one, as a farmer, that's something interests me too, because the agriculture in this area doesn't stay the same, and right now we're seeing a change to a lot of other crops, especially
Right.
filberts and vineyards coming in. So
Right, exactly. Oh, so that's affecting the birds.
we're waiting to see.
I never thought of that. Well, you have an area close to your house you like to go to. What is it called?
Well, I think a couple favorite ones. Right across from our house is E.E. Wilson Wildlife Area, which is the old World War II Army camp that was created for the Army
Right.
2 days after Pearl Harbor or something like that. So it has this great grid of streets. You can just walk around out there or bicycle, and you can see a lot of birds really close up.
Oh, really? Okay. So do you wear binoculars around your neck, or all the time? You've got
Usually,
'em on you.
usually have them close.
It never fails. We'll see something kind of like, as big as a hawk or an eagle or something, and we don't have our binocs to check them out carefully. So in our very own area, where do you like to go? I know that's not too far from where we are.
Yeah.
That's Camp Adair area?
Yeah, it's just south of the county line. When you
Okay.
hit the Benton County line, there's a way station there, and right on the
Okay.
left-hand side, that's where it starts. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I think the best place in Polk County for a lot of people is to go to Basket Slough National Wildlife Area, and there especially, I love the butte. If you walk the trail from
Okay.
the parking lot and up to the
Okay.
top of the butte, you can
Okay.
look out over. You can see Dallas and all the valley spread out. And that's the place for western meadowlarks, especially this time
Okay.
of year. If you go up there, they'll be singing right around the platform there.
Oh, good. Okay. That sounds good. There's a ankeny. Do you ever go out to Ankeny? Or,
Yeah, where we're at, we have to take the ferry. It's sort of coast, but yeah.
yeah. Why spend the money?
Once in a while, yeah. And yeah, I go to once in a while Finley, but I've got.
Oh, in Finland.
And then the other
Okay.
place is Luckiamute State Natural Area, which the Watershed Council has been working on a lot, and
Good.
that's a fantastic place in late summer.
Yeah. Well, I know you're busy. Like every morning when we were trying to schedule this, it was like, yeah, afternoons are good, but don't put me down for mornings. So is this an excellent bird watching time of the year?
May is sort of heaven. This is especially early May. We've got all the migrants coming through, and in this season, I have my regular job, and then I also do field work to work on some of these species that we're worried about at this time.
Good.
So I'm sort of,
Okay.
you can't say moonlighting, it's more like daylighting.
Yeah,
I go
but
out
it's all relates, it's how fortunate you are to get to do what you love. That's pretty neat. So we have a map, thanks to you, of the bird areas. Where might we get a copy of that?
Oh, we try to keep them stocked in all the local, with the, say, Polk County Tourism in Dallas.
Yeah, I bet.
And if you go to Basket Slough, they often have them right in the little stand right as you go on the trail there.
Yep.
And yeah, Corvallis Tourism has them. We just basically every time those places
Great.
run out, we try to feed them
Great,
more.
good idea. Because it's one of those things that makes our area so special. It is nice. So we encourage folks to get out there and do this. I was going to mention that you received an award, a Homer Campbell Environmental Award. Congratulations. It's been a few years, but
Yeah.
you were the first to receive it, I think.
No, yeah, not
okay.
that, there's been a few others, but they
Okay.
do it every other year, and there's been, I think, 5 or 6 of us. And
Congratulations.
yeah, it's a big honor. Homer was a good guy who did a lot of work for conservation, especially around the Corvallis and Benton County area. He has, if you go to Finley Refuge,
Right.
they actually named the boardwalk for him.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so I was really happy about that.
Good. Well, and it was well-deserved. I know that map, you probably had a grant from tourism or something, I hope.
Yeah, we got a lot of help on that. We
Okay, good, because it's going to benefit the entire population, getting to take care of our area and all of that.
Yeah, and the other thing we really wanted to do, it was partly the tourism, Oregon, state tourism, most of the county tourism organizations got involved. And it's partly about birds and getting people the chance to have experiences, but also we want to have rural economic development so that communities are out there with good birds. They have access to people coming in and hopefully spending money in their communities.
Oh, see? There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. Is there an elusive bird? Is there one that's, there was a movie that came out some time ago about that elusive bird going around the world looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, the funny thing is when people come from outside the area, they're looking for birds that we might not think about all the time. But one really good one in this area that a lot of people want to see is the mountain quail. And if you're down in the valley, we have these things called valley quail or California quail, and they've got the little top knot on top of their head
I've seen
that kind
them.
of bends over. But the mountain quail has one that sticks straight up, and they're up in the mountains. And actually, the best way to see them is to go up and drive around on logging roads this time of year.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes you'll see the mothers with little coveys of little chicks.
Oh, that's
running out.
neat. That's neat. We were driving along, my husband and I, and there was a quail we were driving slowly, but he seemed to be keeping up with us, flying through some tall grass. It was really cool. It was really neat to see. Well, thanks, Joel. I've been really appreciated getting to know a little bit more.
Well, thank you, Susan.
Oh,
You're
I
up
should
there.
ask, is there anything you want to talk about? I kind of hogged the conversation.
No, that's great.
I'll
I'll think of something right when we're done. but-
Okay, okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. We're here with Alex Paraskevas. It's a name I know well, but I can't pronounce. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. You have a hat like Joel had, where you're doing a lot of things. You're working primarily for SEDCOR.
That's correct.
And what is your title?
I have a couple titles. I am the Rural Innovation Catalyst for for SEDCOR, and then also doing traditional business retention and expansion.
Oh, okay.
So for Polk County.
Okay, so you're combining rural with business.
Yeah. So yeah,
Or is it two separate?
it's a little bit of separate, but
Okay.
it's it's all sort of mixed together. But the Rural Innovation Catalyst part of my position is grant funded by the Ford Family Foundation for the
Okay.
most part. And then also it is, we've contracted with Polk County and whatnot to sort of go after this ag tech thing.
Yeah,
So-
okay. So that was a term that I wasn't familiar with, and then I saw a Costco article that talked about agri-tech, and they were saying if you're standing still, you're losing ground. You gotta keep up with it.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways technology affects farming?
Lots and lots of ways. I think the funniest analogy that I heard, or unless maybe not the funniest, but at least the most interesting, somebody describing that at a farm you have to support technology that's two cans connected by a piece of string, and then you also have to support a combine that has GPS and will
Yeah,
drive itself
yeah,
around. So I think there is no lack of technology. I think there's necessity is the mother of invention. So farmers do what they have to do
Sure,
to get it done.
sure.
What I think we're trying to do is build a culture in Polk County of innovation and sort of a test bed. We'd love for this to be an area that research out of higher ed and sort of practical applications of research get tested in the field. No pun intended, but that's
Right.
the kind of thing that we would love for this area to be known for, and it ties in really well with sort of City of Independence, smart rural community,
Yeah.
efforts. So yeah,
I saw where the use of drones
Yep.
is something being used. How do they use drones?
drones are used sort of for a whole host of things right now. I don't think anything is I don't know how far along that is, but it is sort of the flash, and
Okay.
that's the exciting one.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the technology that is very interesting is a lot of the sensor, moisture sensors, temperature sensors, and then sort of what you do with all the data that you collect, and sort
Right.
of that kind of big data, predictive analytics, modeling. That's the stuff that seems like it's going to be the most useful and actually not sort of gimmicky. So
Right. So, which crops benefit most from that? Probably wineries. Wouldn't the grape be?
Yeah, so one of the neat projects that I actually saw just a couple weeks ago at George Fox's Senior Expo was a little rover that goes in the vineyard that and they have cameras that measure. They're trying to measure yield, and so they're trying to figure out how do you identify a grape from a photo and as you drive through. So stuff like that. I think that kind of stuff is really neat. We'll see how it scales, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So, like you say, flash.
Yeah, a little
Flash.
bit.
The scene where you see the vintner coming out and taking a grape and tasting it. How often does that happen? You wonder, and saying, "Oh,
What's
just
ready?"
sweet enough."
Yeah. It would be lovely to be able to, sense everything.
romantic.
Yeah, a little bit romantic, and I think
Yeah.
nobody has time for that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all about efficiency. So
So, do you find that takes about half of your time, or more than half of your time?
I'm in the end of my third month right now.
I
So
know this
I
is the honeymoon period.
Right. I don't think I've hit an equilibrium as of yet, and I think I'm still getting my feet under me, sort of what the job entails.
Developing relationships.
That's
and-
the job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the job. That's what we do. That's what SEDCOR does. We connect people who otherwise wouldn't be connected.
Yeah.
And the business retention and expansion part of my job, we have 400 members or so, and we meet with them regularly and sort of ask them what their pain points are and what we can help them solve. And maybe we're not going to solve the problem for them, but we know a guy.
You can,
Right?
yeah,
And so that's
yeah.
kind of the.
So it's networking.
That's 100%.
this-
Yes.
at its
yeah,
best.
That's it.
Good.
Yeah. So public-private partnerships.
So how many of those 400 do you think you knew before you came here?
I'm embarrassed.
None.
Not many. I mean, we have a lot of members who are cities, and so some businesses that I absolutely know, but I'm sort of probably not the poster child, but I'm definitely the person that drives through the fields and didn't realize the power of agriculture for the economy of the mid Willamette Valley.
I think there's a big advantage to coming in, I won't say ignorant, but
Green.
green, yes. So I think the advantage is there are no preconceived notions.
Yeah.
What people tell you is going to be, until you hear otherwise, the truth.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot to learn, but I'm up for the challenge, and I've really enjoyed. I mean, the last 3 months has been a whirlwind, and I don't see it stopping sort of anytime soon.
There was a very nice introductory piece in the newspaper about you and Sean.
Yeah.
And I think that was a great get started,
Yeah.
a good impetus
Yeah.
to get this going.
I've been really happy with that article
Yes.
because a few people have called me.
Yes.
Like, I'm really excited about what you're doing. Can we get together?
Also known you in another way. I know your mom,
Yes.
and we've met at her house
Socially,
for
yeah,
dinner.
for
Yeah,
sure.
socially, there we go. And I know you and your wife, Jen, belong to several wine clubs.
A couple, yeah.
You feel like you know the product. That
Yeah.
may be your...
That's my thing.
That's your thing now. Now, I was told I was up in Portland and talked to somebody from PSU who, oh golly, can't remember his name, faculty member, telling me that grapes don't grow as well this far south because our soil is too nutrient rich. Grapes are supposed to struggle, and so that's why, where we have really good soil, you see other crops. At that, have you heard that?
I haven't.
before?
I haven't.
Yeah.
But again, I'm pretty green.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, what are your plans? I know you're 3 months in. This
Yeah.
is
I think for me, it's just all about continuing to build relationships, and especially in ag. I think the higher ed kind of relationships are easier to develop, I think, for me, just coming out of coming from higher ed and sort of
Right.
my parents and whatnot.
Right.
So I've been sort of leaning on people that carry those relationships already to
Good.
open doors for me.
Good.
And so yeah, and I mean, so far
so your days are filled with meeting.
filled.
And how's
to
your
bottom.
memory?
It's not as good as I maybe thought it was.
Oh, man, I tell
Yeah.
you, I'll shake hands with somebody, get their name, and 2 minutes later forget it. So I'll bet have you learned the tricks like the hook?
Mnemonics and yeah, I'm a big fan of the business card for a reason.
Good.
So yeah, my desk
Good.
is lots and lots of
Good,
business
and
cards.
slyly take a picture.
Yeah, right.
So you can,
Yeah.
remember who that person was next time you see them.
That's exactly it.
We had gone to an event with a mayor of the town we lived in, and he walked by quickly, looked at everybody's name tag, came back and never looked at your name tag and shook your hand and called you by name.
I don't have
And it
that
was,
talent.
oh man, I think if you did, I'd say go into politics.
Yeah, right.
But yeah.
I recognize faces, but names can
Yeah,
be difficult.
good,
So,
good.
but it's also just been sort of drinking from a fire hose a little bit. So
That is exactly a great description.
Yeah.
Any new job.
yeah,
So you had mentioned you came from higher ed. You
Yes.
had worked in the development office at Willamette
Yes, that's correct.
University?
Yep,
Okay.
that's correct.
And you're a local boy of sorts,
I am.
Salem.
Yeah, I went to
And
elementary school in Monmouth.
Was
growing
it
up.
in this building?
It was not.
Okay.
It was not.
You're not old enough because this is the building, this room is the kindergarten.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Eve Olson was on the program last year, and she said, this is where I went to kindergarten.
Well, yeah.
This very room.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not me.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I grew up here and graduated from South Salem High School, University of Oregon, and then my wife and I live in South Salem. So, yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
We're sticking around.
I know you're going to have great success.
Thank you.
You're built for this.
I
This
thank
is
you. I
just
appreciate
right.
that.
Good for you. Any way we can help, let me know.
You're on the hook. Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Weren't they terrific? I learned so much. I'm going out bird watching this weekend. You can see our show on YouTube Wimpeg channel, MyNet channel 718, and of course Polk Salad, A Bounty of Conversation, our Facebook page. Till next time, we'll see you around town. Thank you for joining us.